Hi there. So the second in my series of books from my bookshelf is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Now, as you can see, this is a very old copy. It's held together with sellotape, and even the sellotape is pretty old. Now, I've included this as a special book for me as it represents a very interesting time in my life. And it's kind of an anniversary too. When I was 14, my father was an actor with the Royal Shakespeare Company and was one of the cast of a play that was to go on tour in America, spending a month in Washington, DC and 3 months in New York. My father was allowed to bring family with him, and I was lucky enough to have a very broad-minded headmistress at the time who allowed me to take 4 months away from school, as long as I did homework. Well, I did some. So what an adventure for a 14-year-old. Now, the reason this book is special for me, sorry, that's my dog you can hear in the background. The reason this book is special to me for that time is that one of the actors in the cast suggested that I read Gone with the Wind while we were staying in Washington, DC, it being one of the great American novels. We also had been able to go on a tour around that time of the famous Gettysburg battlefield, one of the major battlefields of the American Civil War. And I had become fascinated by that part of America's history. So, Gone with the Wind was a must-read. I honestly can't remember who bought this for me, whether it was my father or one of the actors, but it was new when it was bought. This edition is 1973, exactly the year when I was 14. That's 50 years ago, folks. I loved this book. I could not get enough of it. I remember reading it in my little room in the apartment we stayed in Arlington, in Washington, not being able to put it down. And then the ending, those last few chapters, I was heartbroken. Honestly, I cried for ages. I could not believe in my young age at that time that Rhett would actually leave Scarlett. I've read it several times, as you can see, and it always ends the same. I've also seen the film several times, and that always makes me cry too. But for those of you who have not read it, Gone with the Wind is not just a love story. It is an amazing historical novel that describes the American Civil War in great detail from the viewpoint of the defeated Confederates, which at times does feel a little uncomfortable now, one has to admit, given that they were mostly defending slavery. But that is what good historical writing does. It broadens our minds to help us see the other point of view, even though the main characters believe in something that we no longer find acceptable. While the film tends to focus mainly on the love story, Mitchell focuses both on the relationships and the history. What comes across in the book is how a whole way of life was swept away by the war. And that is the main meaning of the title, Gone with the Wind. The whole culture and lifestyle of the American South was gone. And people either faded away or found ways to live in the new way of life and survive. And the central character, Scarlett O'Hara, while by no means a heroic or virtuous character in any way, she is certainly a survivor. And that's why we love her. And that's why the ending is so heartbreaking. I would never throw this copy away, despite the fact that it's falling to pieces. Every time I see it in my bookshelf, I'm taken back to that little apartment in Washington, D.C. and the great adventure that I was allowed to go on at the age of 14. So, that's why that book is so important to me. I'd love to hear your comments and any books that you find important to you too. Anyway, if you want to hear more, please subscribe and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.